I will collect 20 successful and prolifically growing native, non-native, and invasive flowering wild plants. I'll start this late spring through the autumn of this ever wild year of 2020. I'll collect everyday run-of-the-mill weeds like Penstemon digitalis, for example. I'll collect them from roadsides, fields, parking lots, wooded areas, stream sides in and surrounding the village and town of Saugerties, New York. These 20 plants will be identified, collected, logged by location, photographed, pressed, labeled, mounted, and displayed in handmade glass top boxes. They will be on display later this year at a location to be announced, or probably virtually the way we're going. In 10 years, 2030, I'll make a short film offering a synopsis of notable environmental events from that decade and revisit the original collection location of each of those 20 plants. We will see if there are any changes to the sites and reveal each plant's success or decline. You can check out my site at goflowergo.com, click on the herbarium page for a short film on the steps of plant collection. And so I want to show you a little bit of my studio and my work. So come along. Well, zillions of plants collected over the years. This is just the tip of the iceberg. This is my desk. This is the plant press. And what happens is I'll collect a plant outside, several of them, usually at once. And there's the wood layer, the cardboard layer, the blotter paper, the newspaper. Plant is displayed here. It's splayed so that one leaf is turned one wet direction, another leaf is turned the other direction. So we have an example of both sides of the plant. The flowers are splayed so we can get a good view of how the flowers would occur naturally. Then it's pressed like this. More newspaper added if needed, if it plants from a wet area or succulent. This is placed on top. These straps are placed around, tightened, and then it sits for a couple weeks. It really depends on the plant itself, what kind of location it's from. And every few days, I'll have to tighten the straps so the plant can dry flat and not be wobbly. So for example, after that plant is done, I take it out and it will be in a file folder kind of like this, where it's stored. Oh, that's pretty. Where it's stored until I can get to here, where I will then fix the plants, weight them down, and wait till they're perfectly flattened and ready to be placed into either a situation like this or in the beautiful glass boxes I'm going to make for this project. And also, sometimes they're framed. And as you can see, I have many framed plants and photographs and live plants. And this is also the music area. So it's a little bit of a view of my studio and where I work. So that's it. That's my project. I want to say thanks again to shout out Saugerties, the Susana Meyer Arts Award, all the artists and nature lovers, my partner, Chris Anderson, for filming me. There's a lot more to come, so stick around and flower on. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. That's really wonderful. Really look forward to seeing seeing how this project develops. So the individual award goes to visual artist Laurie Fredette. Laurie has lived and worked in Saugerties for the past 20 years. Most recently, she's had solo exhibits at the San Jose Institute of Contemporary Art, Cherry Art Space in Ithaca, Museum of Contemporary Art in Jacksonville, Florida, Cape Cod Museum, and Massachusetts. She's also exhibited in the past at Masmoka in Finland, among other places. Laurie has received many prestigious grants, residencies, lectureships. Her proposal is to examine the creative process, its beginnings, the observation and reflection stage. Salute, Laurie. Would you elaborate on your project?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I too am really honored to receive this award. I'm very nervous. I know we're all at home, but I'm still very nervous. Public speaking, I'm an introvert. That's why people don't see me in town that much. So, so Robert, would you be okay if I did a screen share? Because I have a little, since my work is installation based and the project is something not fully realized, would it be okay if I did a screen share and showed a presentation?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, hold on, everybody. Is that coming across on the screen? No, I guess not. Okay, it's not going to work.
I'm not seeing it. Does anyone else see it? No?
No, okay, not a problem. Oh, wait a second. Here we go. How about now? Nope. Okay, never mind. Technology. So, so my project is a sketchbook project, and what I thought I would do, my work is based in research. So it's really important that I have a process of being able to grab ideas, find a place to collect them. And because I'm interested in explorers notebooks, that's actually how my sketchbook project began, as far as how I also collect my data, so to speak. So I was looking at sketchbooks as being the workhorses of artists and writers and builders and philosophers and scientists, because that's where the in-depth visual discussion happens for us. And then the outcome of that is the manifestation of the work that we're realizing, whether it's a book or an installation. So I thought that I was looking at the sketchbook as having a global implication as well as a local implication. I'm going to speak to local artists, and Chris, I would like to talk to you for my project, actually. I'm glad to meet you, because I think that the passion for sketchbooks really informs all artistic practices, whether it's the writer or a filmmaker. And I would like to do in-depth interviews with locals, such as maybe Chris, and I was thinking Christina Tenaglia is on my list, and Ian Matchell. I know that they're all sketchbook keepers. And to get a sense of where that beginning of exploration, when they're making a commitment to an idea to manifest it on a piece of paper. And with that manifestation, I presented to the panel to consider a maybe small local exhibition where we would see the actual sketchbook along with a realized work of art by the artist. And also there would be an online publication, either in an online catalog or a blog post about each interview. I'll be recording them as well as photographing them, so that we'll have a local archive of the work of local artists. So it's not limited to visual artists. It's just that is the names right off the top of my head that I can put out to the community. And I want to say thank you to everybody on the selection committee. I know that being on a jurying process is time consuming, and the decisions are often difficult. So I really value your time, and I value this unique honor. I had mentioned to Suzanne that my husband used to work at Bard and actually knew of Susanna. So it's particularly heartwarming to receive the award. I know that Jeff was really quite excited when I told him that I had this unique opportunity presented by you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Laurie. This is great. These are such fascinating projects that we have here. Really exciting. Is Katie Kokonos with us now in the audience? Do we know? She was going to try to be here.
Yes, she is. Yes.
Oh, can you highlight?
Um,
Hi.
Hi, Katie.
Oh, here she is. Okay, let me get her. Katie.
Hi.
I just wanted to say that Katie was our winner last year, and the first winner, therefore, of the Susana Meyer Creative Arts Award. And she's making a film, and actually Guy Reed is assisting her with the film, working with her on the film, Water Keeps Time, and it will premiere in its entirety in October. We saw a rough cut of it. I think it was October.
Oh gosh, seems like a
And
long time ago.
really promises to be so outstanding, focusing on the Esopus, and she's interviewed many people around town. And we hope that we will see it in full this October. That are the plans.
Yes.
In the meantime, take a look at Portrait of a Girl as a Young Cat on video. We spotlighted it last night, and Katie had recorded an introduction to the film, and the introduction was a little hard to access last night. It's now up and running on Facebook and also on YouTube. So it is such a winning, charming film.
Oh, thank you.
And yes, so Katie, I don't know whether you want to say anything about doing this project. And
Oh, I just, yeah, I think when I applied for the grant, I really didn't think I was going to get it. So I I was so thrilled and excited, and it just took me on a trajectory I had no idea. And I'm so fortunate to work again with Guy, and we've just, yeah, I will never look at water the same way again. Particularly the Esopus Creek. So I just can't wait to, you know, get back in and finish it so we can, you know, show it in October. Hopefully we can show it with an audience all together, and that's what I'm hoping for. And we're still working on it, even though it's challenging. But so anyway, it's just been great. It was really the highlight of my year last year, was working on the film. So thank you. And wow, I'm so excited about this year's awards. They're just so much imagination and creativity, and so grounded in Saugerties.
yes,
It's
yes.
wonderful. It's
And they
great.
really seem like projects that are going to be particularly appropriate for
Yeah.
this time that we are now living in.
Yeah.
I think they're wonderful, as yours is,
Yeah.
Katie. So it's a nice confluence of
Mm,
projects coming
yeah.
together, and we'll see them in October. I
Yeah.
be positive about that.
October.
Right,
Even if we
yes.
have to wear masks.
October.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, artists, all of you, and to any of you who applied or are listening with the wonderful projects that you have, and we will be certainly championing them all that we can. I turn it over, Robert, to you and to the poetry now. I think we're right on time here.
Timing's perfect. Katie, I watched the film last night. I loved it. I thought it was so charming. Yeah, really wonderful. If you haven't had the chance to see it, please check it out. It's on Vimeo. Yes. You can find it at shoutoutsaugerties.org. I'm really pleased to start the poetry portion of our program. We've got 4 really wonderful poets here with us today. The first one I'm really happy to introduce, Vernon Benjamin. Vernon Benjamin has recently reconnected with his creative self after a lifetime of journalism and public service. His published work includes a 2-volume history of the Hudson River Valley. So please welcome Vernon Benjamin.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. I'm particularly delighted by the kind of intimacy of Saugerties theme that has been struck. and I'd like to share with you pieces of my life that are part of how I constructed my poetry. The first one is called Hiding Places, and it's kind of a diatribe by a boy who grew up on Post Street and Finger Street. By the way, I was born at Dale Sanitarium in the village of Saugerties. Hiding Places. There was one in the house on Post Street, in the closet under the stairs. I hoveled out a cave behind the winter coats and boxes and listened to Cousin Brucey on ABC by the light of a candle I smuggled in from the kitchen. I read comics when I had them. My father got a notion to put a mural on the parlor wall and drew a couple of trees and some deer. Dickie hid behind the banister and shot them with his BB gun, ducking and rolling on the floor. He missed a lot. The hedge along Post Street was way over my head, and on the far end I could climb into it and play shadow games with the branches. I became other bushes. Once, when I was a hedge, somebody passing by said, "Oh, look at that, a hedge cocoon becoming butterfly." The mulberry in the field below the hill behind the house made a tent with a dirt floor where we could play cards. We hid butts in holes we dug in the floor. I kept mine in a Kent pack because it had the microlight filter. Ronnie had the best card tricks. You could spear fine, long butts on Partition Street when the trucks came off the bridge and whined through First and Second on the pull past the mill. After Dock Street, the drivers threw the butts out the window and shifted into Third. Partition had 2 passing zones at that time. In the spring, I made styrofoam boats and floated them down the gutter. Once, I hit a poem on one. A good place to hide in the summer was the rendezvous on the ridge behind Elm Street. Sometimes I just went for the Columbine, but I didn't like to be alone there. When I went back last year, it was like I had lost my youth. The rendezvous was gone. When we played tag with Mandy that day, and he ran under the wheels of the truck coming down Partition Street, I ran home and told Mom. That night we gathered at the parlor stove and prayed. "Here," she said, "this should be good. Let's pray here." I hid inside the mica's red glow. Fast forward to the 1981 when I was being treated for Hodgkin's disease with chemotherapy. I remember having this sentiment when I walked into the waiting room and saw the people, many of whom I knew. I wrote this poem, began it in 2015, and finished it up last year. Chemo Dream. 1. I see Mary and the red-headed lady, Mr. Lee and the maiden who accompanies the dame, the storekeeper who sold me my first fishing license, the barber, the postmaster's cousin. Is that the lawyer's wife too? Friday, 7:45. It has all been prearranged. I do not have to leave my name. I arrive in a cape and a fine top hat and greet the others with a smile. I take a seat beneath Monet. Leucocytes poised, I read a Smithsonian tale. Mustarden, Belban, I await your rough call. 2. The doctor has laid out the crystal clear vials. They are happy to give me the vials. I open my arms and I smile. I declare I have come for a friend. I give them my arm for a friend. The elixir is in me again. I am happy to help out a friend. I leave by the same way I came. There is no one awaiting their turn. There is only the maiden who accompanied the dame. She opens her arms and she smiles. This one started out as a haiku. I wrote many haikus in my youth, and in fact, I got an A in a graduate course on Oriental literature for 25 haikus I turned in as a Japanese paper. But then the E.E. Cummings in me got a hold of me. My poetic influences stretch back to Chaucer, medieval literature, the Elizabethans, particularly John Donne, Victorians, Gerald Manley Hopkins, Tennyson, especially his later poetry, and numerous 20th century poets, especially E.E. Cummings. Airport, 2004. In the name of the homeland God bless me, I empty myself into neat plastic trays, including my teeth. There is nothing, God bless me, I would not expose for my country. 'Tis of thee, to guards and monitors who talk among themselves and watch a little here, a little there, smiling and snide-eyeing until the burps and the beeps and the bells stop chirping and I, the grandfather, can walk forward on carpeted corridors carrying my shoes. God bless me. Let's see. My mother developed a heart problem in late 1989, and I moved into the house and took care of the household. My other two brothers took care of other aspects. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. Of my addiction. Pardon. Let me start this again. I'm very sorry.
Is that you? Okay, thank you.
That was my phone. Yeah. Her last snowfall. As the snow quietly speckles the streetlight in velvet, my life turns on the smells of garlic and onion and the celery and mushrooms sliced in the morning and half cups of wine. On the saucer, I lay out the 5-colored pills with the breakfast of prune juice and raisins and muesli, Bumex for the water, and Lanoxin, Coumadin, replenishments of potassium. I measure the coffee and watch while it steeps. I lay out 2 spoons. I beg your pardon. This first part was morning. I measure the coffee and watch while it steeps. I lay out 2 spoons and a pitcher of milk, leaving the newspaper side for my father, where it won't interfere. 2, evening. The cars through the streetscape move slower and slower, as if all of their batteries were quietly dying, and the snow in the daylight seems held in suspension like a theater of stars. The house lights are lit with the street lights in evening, yellow and speckled with blues and with browns. The neighborhood settling like snow into dinner, the closing of car doors and men crossing lawns. How strange the vast changes the new whiteness brings. I sit and I watch while she tentatively eats, and the snow without conscience falls in the evening on mother and me. That poem actually started out as a desire to write a poem that ended with the last 3 words that ended it. I didn't know what it was going to be about until I started writing it. Every spring, I take my first motorcycle ride up to Roxbury and visit John Burroughs' gravesite. It was also the place where he grew up, a place called Boyhood Rock. This happened just a few years ago in the fall. At Boyhood Rock for John Burroughs. My eyes have dulled these later days. The freshness of my youth is gone. Yet here I stand and here I gaze across this valley and your farm. The years may lay like dying leaves along the paths that I have walked, yet still my eyes can clearly glimpse the panting breaths of birds on stalks that call to me across the vale, and wonder why I spook their homes in wistful thought and muted song that speak such melancholic tones. I do not know why time provokes our autumn's brown vermilion gold, or why this timeless setting aches, yet here I am, and I feel old. I twitch my tail to you, John, and to these fading afternoons, and birds that call across the vale to chastise me, my thoughts of gloom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vern. We'll turn it over to Suzanne, who will introduce our next poet.
Guy Reed is the author of Second Innocence. Wonderful cover. Lucador Press. He's the author of 3 chapbooks and contributed poems to in journals, anthologies, films. He lives in Saugerties and often works with Katie Kokonos on films, as we heard Katie say earlier. Guy.
Thanks everybody who's following online. I also wanted to thank Suzanne and Robert for putting this together, and shout out Saugerties. I did have having a great experience working with Katie with the grant that we received last year so generously. Vernon's a part of that. It's wonderful to hear Vernon, a terrific writer and resource in this community. So I look forward to finishing that up and seeing everybody at that screening. In terms of my own work, I've lived in Saugerties. It's going to be 23 years this spring, later this spring. Born and raised in Minnesota. I've spent time living on the West Coast in California and Oregon. But I've really loved the home that we made here, my wife and I, and we've raised our children here. Thinking about influences, when I was young, I would say my first influences were really musical, popular music, lyricists. In fact, I remember being so excited to get home with an album, vinyl record, take the shrink wrap off, open it up, and I'd be so disappointed if the lyrics weren't included. Either if it was a double album, if you opened it up, or on the inner sleeve, because that's what I really wanted. I love the music, but I wanted to hear what they were, read what they were saying and singing about. I remember Johnny Cash, a lot of country music, John Denver. And I discovered like Bruce Springsteen and Lou Reed. Bob Dylan to a certain extent, but he was just kind of separate category anyway. And then I got involved in theater and film, and I didn't really start reading poetry until my early to mid 20s. Started with like Charles Bukowski, just because I pulled a book off the shelf and went, wow, you can write about this? This is a poem? Okay, well, if he can write about this, then anything is open and I can go forward. So I couldn't go back to school at that point because I started raising a family, but I spent the next 20 years just reading a lot of poetry. In terms of this book, Second Innocence, I'd say the main influences really on that are Jack Gilbert, the poet who wrote from the 60s up until he passed away in 2013, and Marie Howe, who's still going, were the biggest influences on this. A lot of mid-century, mid-20th century poets. I liked a lot of contemporary poets. Gone back and read Tennyson is an excellent one. Some of the metaphysic poets, certainly some Walt Whitman in there, but I'd say in terms of influences, more from the 20th century. So I wanted to read 4 poems. This book, poems in this were written really from like 2006-7 through 2014-15. I finished the manuscript in 2016. It's meant as a whole, piece, although you can dip in here and there. But the speaker in this book experiences the death of his parents, their parents. It's about time, being a parent, and there's a lot of poems about art mixed in there. We're putting in there for certain effect. So I'm going to read 4 poems that are basically a representative selection of the book as a whole. First one, Patience. After a year, I stopped expecting the phone to ring on Sunday evenings. Didn't jump when it rang on Wednesdays. Found other ways to begin my Friday nights. There had been no specters, no signs, nothing that would make me think, that was my father. No misty whispers or, what was that? No mysterious cloud formations, nothing in the tea leaves. What I expected was a dream visitation, my father appearing from the dark wood to impart sage wisdom from beyond the veil. I felt abandoned, surprised by his utter absence. Where did he go? After 2 years, I dreamt myself in a boat. I felt his presence there. I was having trouble with my task. His hands came into my frame of view to untangle my monofilament and bait my hook, so I could continue to fish for what is hungry under the surface of water upon which we float. Yeah, and that's yeah, you know, that was a direct experience. Yeah. Anyway, influences. We could go on and on. I could talk for the next 15 or 20 minutes just about poetic influences. But couldn't we all? And this one, oddly, today is the anniversary of my mother's birth. Born in 1936, she would have been 84 today, which coincidentally was the age my father was when he passed away. She was a little over 12 years younger, and lived a much, much healthier lifestyle than my father ever did. My father did everything he weren't supposed to do. So I think we assumed that my mom would live at least that long, but she did not. So this is from my mom. Maybe in my eyes. Late July flowers, pink, orange, yellow, white, surround the shade of the portico. Sun on stone driveway, breeze and oak leaves. I think of my mother who used to exist, myself a child, not long ago. I realize language can't say it. What I want to say is on the other side of thought, region of intangibility. It's the sum of these parts on this specific day. Even a 3D motion picture, precise sound would not convey it. For it is only me, my love, my own sense of time's vastness and minute treasures. Here, at the meeting point where I exist in space and time ceases to exist at all, I speak to you and say nothing, a hollow mouth. Only the high hawk of archetypal light can see the formless, waving in the meadow. And then this poem seemed appropriate to read also in light of everything we're experiencing in the world. You know, when someone passes, you go through all those stages of denial, anger, bargaining, forget them all, but anyway, what's tough happening out of our context of being able to deal with it. So I'm going to read this one. It's called Acceptance. We do all that we can. Of course, kindle affair, loud, induce laughter, sit in the fullness of silence. We lift and carry, raise water to lips, apply cool washcloths, stroke faces and hair, say, it's okay. There are oceans of love, shores of forgiveness. We can provide, but we cannot perform the miraculous. And that is what makes us moan, whimper, bewildered, crawl, and cry. Yeah, it's a little tragedy, people not being able to mourn and grieve in the way that we're accustomed to these days. And I'll finish with this one. I mentioned that there's a lot of poems about art in this book, some ekphrastic about specific pieces of art, some about art in general, some about writing and process. They're kind of meant as caesuras throughout the book, but also there's a certain amount of innocence, I think, that goes into approaching a work of art, an openness, and certainly an innocence or a childlike quality in the making of art. That's important. And this is a specific painting by a painter called Ralph Humphrey from the mid-70s, 76, and the title is the title of the painting. conveyance object number 4. The day rises blue, all blue, nothing else, filling the space behind and between things, space that is not me or you, space that appears to be empty. It too is blue. Other colors become an endpoint for our sight. Black birds, red cars, a yellow house, green hills, brown shoes, gray cement. Distract us from the veil of blue sky between even our fingers, our eyelashes, our parted lips. Blue things like teapots, dinner plates, bluebirds, and mailboxes double back air and light in resonant waves of blue becoming electric. When the death ship comes to collect my soul, I wish to ride the pure white sails clear into the cobalt blue that must continue forever, deep, deep plumb of the depths, blue behind the blue that is bluer yet, disappear into that sky full of nothing but itself. Thank you. Yep, this is my book. It's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, but I don't expect people to go shopping at this time for books. But if you are interested, you probably have my email. If you have a pen and paper real quick, it's GEREED 1775 @gmail.com. We can make arrangements and figure something out. I'd just rather have people read the book. I got a big box of them right about the same time the coronavirus showed up, and a book can do no good in a box. So I'm willing to send anybody a copy if they're interested. Thank you again for listening, everyone.
I can't hear him.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I didn't realize I was muted. Okay, let me start over. So our next reader is Sari Grandstaff. And Sari, if you have been to some of the events in the last few years at Shout Out Saugerties, you might know Sari from the street sidewalk haiku that she does with Will Nixon. We were hoping to do it again this year, but unfortunately we couldn't. So we're really pleased that she is here to share some work with us today. So the bio is Sari Grandstaff at Haikutopia is a poet in Saugerties, New York. She's a member of the Hudson Valley Haiku Kai and Haiku Society of America. Sari works as a high school librarian and is the founder of the International Haiku Poetry Day, which is April 17th. No, that's not today, which is now under the auspices of the Haiku Foundation. So please welcome Sari Grandstaff.
All right. Thank you, Robert. Oh, it says I'm muted. Am I unmuted?
You're okay.
Unmuted, okay. Yeah, so actually that was just 2 days ago. We had International Haiku Poetry Day, which I founded in 2007. And it's on April 17th because National Poetry Month is April. And of course, haiku traditionally, classically have 17 syllables. So April 17th sort of makes sense. It me to kind of get it off the ground just as an individual. So the in 2012, I had the Haiku Foundation sort of took over the sponsorship of it. And with that organization, we're able to do a lot. And one thing that we do every year that everybody can participate in is it's sort of what they call the Earthrise collaborative haiku. And it's really the world's largest collaborative haiku. There's a different theme every year. and anybody from all over the world. And so you, during those 24 hours, which of course starts at a different time, you know, because it's all over the world, but people submit haiku on the theme, and then they will you know, they'll put them together, and in a couple of weeks they'll, you know, put it out. But it's on the Haiku Foundation website. So this year, which is kind of prescient because, you know, the United Nations designates a special year every year, and 2020 is the year of the nurse, believe it or not. And of course, they made that designation before we knew how important nurses were going to be to all of us, you know, during this time. So that was the theme for this year. And that's one of the things that they do. Besides that, people hold events all over and do different things for International Haiku Poetry Day. They make films, and they do all kinds of things that they post on the website. And usually they have in-person gatherings too. One of the things about haiku that not everybody realizes, but also it's a social activity in Japan. People will get together on different families and groups, and they write haiku together. That's kind of how haiku started. And this still goes on a lot in Japan, but it goes on here too. And I'm actually a member of a kukai, which is a haiku writing group. And believe it or not, this is really a Zoom day for me, because we had to have our meeting. Obviously, usually we meet at the Woodstock Library, but we had to have our meeting with Zoom. So I just finished that before this program started. So I'm really spending my day on Zoom today. But anyway, and that's open to anyone. And it's kind of you meet monthly or however, if you're in a kukai, and it's just kind of a friendly people. You know, you have a moderator, and everybody writes haiku, submits them anonymously. They get read. Everybody kind of votes on them, and you know, you kind of have like an unofficial winner, and then the next month we'll start out with commentary about the winning haiku. So it's really kind of a fun thing to do. It's a social activity, which is, you know, being made hard obviously in this time. So I'm going to read some haiku. Actually, I'm going to read the haiku. My haiku happened to win my kukai today, which was kind of fun. But I'm going to read that one. So actually, what I'm going to do is read a few, you know, haiku sort of topically about, you know, what's going on now and about the pandemic and the COVID-19. Springtime pandemic. Though everything is closed down, daffodils open. Sheltered in place, yet after the storm, a rainbow bridges the distance. Snow moon, the pendant light's reflection over the kitchen island. Spring morning, wind chimes and bird song, our empty nest. And then this is the one that got the most votes today at our Hudson Valley Haiku Kai. In last night's dream, unmasked and barehanded, I hug you close once again. Now, some of those may not have obviously felt, you know, pandemic related to you. Some of them, it's just, but you know, we're all sort of paying attention to some details now that we're, you know, living the way we have to live now with the social distancing. And so I feel like that kind of is something that's kind of like a hallmark of haiku, is to sort of pay attention to sort of everyday details and kind of find the aesthetic that is often associated with haiku, which is wabi-sabi, which is that sort of Japanese concept of finding the beauty, you know, in the imperfect. And that's sort of one of the things that haiku does. It's very much in the present moment. It's very grounded in the present and in sort of ordinary details and ordinary moments. I'm going to read some other haiku that are just sort of springtime haiku. Actually, this one that I'm going to read, every year, the Golden Triangle neighborhood in Washington, D.C., which is the neighborhood that's kind of in between the White House and DuPont Circle. And it's a very dense neighborhood with offices, and a lot of the government agencies are there. So it's a heavily trafficked workplace, neighborhood, not so much residential, but a work area in Washington, D.C. Anyway, that neighborhood, the Business Improvement District, holds a haiku contest every year, and people submit, again, from all around the world. And there's a panel of judges, and they choose a haiku. I mean, they choose some winners. There's like a first, second, third place, but then they just choose haiku. And what they do during, March and April, start the Cherry Blossom Festival, and then into April for Poetry Month, is they make signs out of the haiku, and they post them all throughout the streets of the neighborhood, a couple of hundred of them. And they put them in the tree boxes that surround the trees along the islands and the sidewalks and the meridians, like we have in New York City. They put these haiku for people to see on these nice signs, Golden Triangle haiku. So I had one in this year, and that one was: springtime lunch break, courtyard pigeons joining the office gossip. I kind of had that neighborhood in mind, actually, when I wrote that haiku. Off-season boardwalk, the seagulls linger on top of the Ferris wheel. Moonlight on spring snow, a lost hour contemplating what's in the shadows. In their Milky Way, a constellation of flakes orbiting my spoon. Evacuation route, flooded with emotions, the past left behind. Meeting his mother, I wear pearls and a sweater, still a cool welcome. I do sometimes also write haiku. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the New Verse News, but that is I recommend that site, newversenews.com. And what they post a poem daily, although with all the news in recent times, they've been posting more than one a day. And it's political. It's a progressive news site, but it's told through poetry. So you can submit poems and if they accept them, and it's on, they're on what's happening, in the world politically. And I've had several on New Verse News. I'm going to read a couple just because after that I'm going to read a poem that's not a haiku, but that is political. But I have used the form to write some political poems. So this one was written and they published it back during the election. Mid-autumn snowfall, entering hostile chambers, brave congresswomen. And that was when some of the women that, those young women that got elected to Congress, and it was kind of a contingent, and that was a first. And then this one, which was after a school shooting, Parkland. Second Amendment is not a death penalty. Kids trump ignorance. And so those were a couple of political ones that I've had written. I'm going to read a poem, and this one is about the pandemic. This is, as I said, this is not a haiku. My apologies to Janis Joplin on this one, because I cannot sing. However, this poem really needs to be sung and not read, because it is written to the tune of Mercedes-Benz by Janis Joplin. So I'm going to sing it. And again, I apologize for that. It's called Janis Sings the COVID-19 Blues. Here goes. Oh Lord, won't you buy me good health for my friends, family, doctors and nurses, and essential workers, amen. working hard to be our lifeline. No help from the feds. Oh Lord, won't you buy me enough hospital beds? Oh Lord, won't you buy me a night on the town? Being socially distant sure can get you down. Prove that I'm essential and buy the next round. Oh Lord, won't you buy me a night on the town? Oh Lord, won't you buy me a roll of TP? Darling, some income is trying to find me. I'll wait for Amazon deliveries each day until 3. Oh Lord, won't you buy me a roll of TP? Everybody join in on this last verse again. Oh Lord, won't you buy me good health for my friends, my family, doctors and nurses, and all essential workers, amen. Working hard to be our lifeline, no help from the feds. Oh Lord, won't you buy me enough hospital beds?
Bravo.
Well done. Well done.
Lovely.
Thank you.
All right. Going to bring on Suzanne now, who will talk about, introduce our.
I'll introduce Bruce.
Yes.
Yes. Finally, Bruce Weber is a poet and historian of American art. His most recent book of poetry is There Are Too Many Words in My House. Visual here. Which was Rogue Scholar Press in 2019. Bruce has done several programs for Shout Out, including curating a standing room only poetry reading and conducting an interview with Saugerties' first gallery owner, which was a wonderful interview. Bruce, turn it over to you.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good, good, good. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Suzanne. This is so good. I've had a couple of big Zoom things with my family, including a Passover and an Easter, and it's the best we can do, I guess. I picked out some work that I've written that just seems to touch in terms of mood, what we're all going through. And I haven't been writing that much, but I have been writing. I just felt like I had to. And I'm going to mix a couple of those in. But I'm going to start out with it's actually the first poem in the book. And this was written probably around 2015, after I had gone through some big changes in terms of work and what I was doing. It's called, These Have Been Impossible Seasons. These have been impossible seasons, he said, lighting a match on the side of the barn and then watching it flitter in the wind and go out. These impossible seasons have tied up your mother's mind in sailor's knots, have scurried for shelter in God's humble house, have delivered bread when death stood by the door. These have been impossible seasons, he said, fingering through memories of his daughter's smile, the moment she surrendered to Father Time, her face covered with grandmother's blue handkerchief. Someday everything will be clear as old man Sumner's pond, and truth will tickle us under the arms, he said, biting into a crab apple and spitting it out, slamming a fist against the stomach of a mighty oak. These have been impossible seasons, he said, twisting a stick in the earth, laughing as loud as a torrent of hail, tapping the length of tobacco and paper against the barn door for luck. Mostly staying in. Have done some free thinking poems about the plague, some ever so slow walks down country roads, some stargazing even in daylight. Ate a squirrel last week, some ants this morning, trying to stay out of trouble, mostly keep the house entirely dark, even at midday or when the moon is full of mischief. Our cats are now fluent in Italian. Suddenly, in the middle of self-incarceration, they started saying Bella this and Bella that. The vet is very confused, but I understand it. The world's gone kafooey, so why can't they become fluent in Italian? In any case, hey, Bella. Thinking about, metaphorically and how you work and tonality in poems. This is a poem I wrote in the 80s, but I always feel like it's one of the few from that period that I can still read. and part of it's just the tone, and there's a sense of emptiness, and it's really kind of one of the first times I really envisioned something and then wrote about it. And if you're familiar with the great French street photographer Auger, that the Museum of Modern Art used to make a big deal out of, who photographed all over Paris for decades. And Berenice Abbott got hold of the archives, and then the Museum of Modern Art got them. This is a poem called Auger and the Sweeper. Paris on an early morning, Auger sets up the camera, everything still as a painting. The Seine like a whale, the Seine like a whale, everything still as a photograph, everything except the man with the broom, sweeping. The sweeper grips the handle of the broom without saying a word. Little children like fog drift across the Seine, and a mother washes laundry and writes in a diary. Everyone on this side of the Seine is a writer, painter, sculptor, or musician. Everyone on the other side of the Seine is a banker, mortician, aristocrat, or clown. The cats climb the statues of Hercules and Samson and angle through the muscle-bound legs and the heavy locks of hair. The black and white cat is the most heroic animal in contemporary France. Auger's camera stands on three thin legs. The slight Frenchman with the nervous tic stands on a step stool behind thick gray air, sharpens the focus under the black curtain. Under the black curtain, everything is frozen, everything is still, everything is waiting. Auger presses, and the city of Paris moves a step to the left, then a step to the right. The Seine rises, water spurts, wetting the early morning streets, but Auger is behind the camera, speaking with the sweeper, asking for a name, an age, a height, an address. Paris remains still. The fog drifts north like an answer, but everyone is sleeping. There is no reply, and the man with the baby girl ambles like a penguin to the side of the Seine where painters raise their easels, and the man with the baby girl drops a coin in a cup the size of a tear fallen from a photograph of a face by Man Ray in a future Paris where everything is electrified. There's all this stuff going on in Windows. Do people know if those poems are still in the windows in Saugerties? Nope. But I know I had a poem, An Inquiring Mind, I heard. I never saw it. Although I think Will Nixon did send out some photographs of what the windows look like, but I never opened that email somehow. But this was the poem that was in the window at Inquiring Mind. It seemed appropriate for one of the great bookstores. Convalescence. When I was growing up, my fingers throbbed from turning so many pages. The weight of A Tale of Two Cities almost crushed me. The nurses were pleasant. The doctors made me promise to embrace sleep as an ally, but I read under the cover of night with my flashlight, devouring the Arabian Nights and tales of the Brothers Grimm. I danced around the truth till the truth waltzed away shyly, defending myself from the sheepish questions of lovers by reading till dawn crept under the door, quiet as a lamb. The convalescence was sweet, a victory for my fingers and my soul. I charted the wonders of every page like a merchant adding up sous, while butterflies sprinted across the garden like Maccabees, playing tag with sparrows, pole vaulting petunias and bee bombs, anticipating the whir of the engine and the tumult of turning gears chomping on grass. The butterflies disappeared after that summer. A pall was cast over their beauty that stung. The endless days of pouring rain drowned everything. Even Emily Dickinson's poems couldn't keep the butterflies in tow. The falling of summer on their delicate skin, breaking the thread of their conversation with the sun. A sudden thud on the roof of all that happened that summer, while my fingers silently healed. I don't know if any of you have experienced any people who are close to you that have passed away because of the virus, but I did. My mentor of 50 years passed away on Tuesday, Bill Gertz, so it's a pretty fresh wound. I haven't written about it yet, but I will, I know I will. But this is a poem for a poet named Mickey Siegel, who died at the age of 59, a good friend of Joanne and I in the city, very active in the poetry scene in the East Village for years. This is titled Poem for Mickey Siegel, dying at age 59 on a snowy day. The snow is falling across the sky of my window, drifting across the prairie of the street, like a ghost of Mickey's life. She ain't here to see the snow. She died this morning at 4 a.m. and I'm wishing she could be here to see the snow, worship the snow in one of her poems, take the snow home on her back like a little child, play in the snow, her red hair all tangled up in White's confusion, White's bulky wetness, White's ever-ready punch of a snowball zooming across the sky like a javelin. No, Mickey ain't here no more, unless she's that streak of snow passing by my window, leaving a hint she's here in the shadows, in the dust, in the reflections, in the moonbeams. Mickey, just a step away, in our minds, in our poems, in our imaginations. The snow, there's Mickey. The moon, there's Mickey. The bright and luminous sky, that's Mickey. Okay, thanks everybody. I'm gonna read one new one. It's called Lost Poem 312. Everyone's lost track of time and space. The shoe is on the wrong foot and the moon is singing the blues. My Aunt Wilma confessed to a star. My brother Winifred laughed at a croissant. My dog Giovanni waltzed into a mirror. I remember Lucille, that night her car zoomed down the highway and love dissolved like antacid in a glass. That memory's set in my mind like a sapphire. Tomorrow, I will race Father Time. I will fill in the cracks of endless days of folly and play and touch my nose while walking a straight line into the arms of faith and God and the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome.
I'm really sorry for your loss. I too lost someone very special to me this week. It's surreal times that we're living in right now, and I think that we're all processing it in our own way, and through art and poetry is really a wonderful way to process that and to share what we've been going through with everyone. So I'm really pleased that there's events like this, and that we're all healing each other through various ways. I wanted to give a little plug and mention, again, it is National Poetry Month, and every year in April, Emerge Gallery does an art and poetry show. It's called Art and Words. This year, obviously, we can't do it at the gallery, but I'm doing it online. There's 25 artists included and 18 poets, and basically, artists and poets were both invited to submit existing artwork and existing poetry. The artwork went to the poets, and the poetry went to the artists, and each were asked to connect with a piece and create either a new poem inspired by a piece of art or a new piece of art inspired by a poem. And then they're exhibited side by side. Usually host a reading every year. This year, we're going to do it virtually. So please join us next Sunday, the 26th at 4:00 on the Emerge Gallery NY Facebook page, and it will go live there. So we're going to have most of the poets reading from their work, and you'll see the work as well. If you wanted to read the work yourself and see it, you can access it either on the Emerge Gallery site, emergegalleryny.com, or through the Emerge Gallery Artsy site on artsy.net. That's artsy.net. Really wanted to thank everyone for participating. It's a really wonderful event. I'm so pleased to be part of it. And I am going to turn it over to Suzanne, who will give us some parting words. Thanks again, everyone.
I think this is such a terrific evening, late afternoon that we've had. I feel filled with so much. I think I will run out in my yard and just yell for a while or jump around the room. So we're trying. Shouted is trying to do as much as we can virtually to create things now for the community, and we believe that by sharing the work of artists that it will help some to get through what we're trying to get through, and I think certainly this what we just witnessed is a wonderful example of how creative work soothes and heals and excites and replenishes. So yes, so we will do as much of this as we can. Check our postings on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks to Suzanne Wall-Balsamo and Brittany Bernard. They're doing just an excellent job of keeping postings going. If you look at our website, you will see, actually Bruce mentioned this, the photography that Will did in Saugerties. He paired with poems from not from local poets, but poems that he had been reading and particularly liked. And it's really a stunning collection of photographs and poems. So look on the website and you will see that. We've been getting wonderful responses from it. We now have a YouTube channel, Shout Out does, and on it you will see, in addition to the pet parade, which we did Easter Sunday, we have some trailers from plays that we had expected to read now in April and couldn't. And so using various kinds of technology, Beth Troxel and Sydney Grossberg-Ronga rehearsed with the actors, and so we have these excerpts that were then taped and videoed, and thanks to Matthew Morgan, who is a high school student with a particular interest in film. He edited them for us, and they're online, and we're really excited to have that. Coming up, we're just percolating ideas about Earth Day. I think we may have a short film of Katie's that we'll be showing. Perhaps doing something with poetry in the library. We're working on a music online, writing workshops. We have a couple in the works. And then when we start doing things in June, by the end of June, it's possible that we will be able to gather. And if so, we will make music events, and once again, Latin dancing, which was very popular last year. So we will hope to repeat that. In August, surely we will be mingling then. We have a very special event, a workshop, opera workshop, contemporary chamber opera, Penelope and the Geese, which is a retelling of the Odyssey from Penelope's point of view, certainly influenced by the Me Too movement. Librettist Sherry Magid, who lives part-time here, and composer Militza Peranosic. This is co-produced at J.J. Newberry with Jen Hicks of 11 Jane Street. So we're really looking forward to that. And lastly, thanks to co-directors, Robert and Isabel Sofa, and all of our wonderful creative programmers and advisors and donors. We will see you as soon as we can live. Thank you for listening. Thank you for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you. So glad to meet all these fabulous people. Thank you.
Really nice job, everybody.
Terrific.